Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back to MTN Outdoors. I'm Tom Buchanan and I'll be your guide for this week's adventure. You know, it's been a pretty hot summer and it's really nice to be able to put your feet in the river. Although it's a bit of a different situation up by the Canadian border on the Milk River, as Tommy Lynch reports.
The Milk River provides tons of water to people all across the High Line. And as you can see here on the Cottonwood Bridge north of Havre, it's completely dry. Before the St. Mary's and Sherburne Canal were created, the Milk River always ran dry. But this was a problem in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Now, the issue has returned.
I've been along the Milk River for 72 years, and this is the first time that I've seen it totally dry.
With the St. Mary's pipe bursting back in June, there is no water to flow into the Milk River, leaving the future up in the air for about 18,000 people.
The reason this is so critical right now is we're very, very dependent on spring runoff next year to put any water into the Fresno Dam at all.
Without the water, supplementing water from places like the Beaver Creek Dam becomes the only solution. The issue is that this is not a long-term fix.
At this point, we have to look at virtually no irrigation coming out of Fresno Dam for next summer.
Causing huge costs for cattle farmers.
Right now, anybody that grazes cattle on the Milk River above Fresno is not able to graze unless they supplement water.
And even bigger costs for irrigators.
They are done irrigating for the year, and unless we get snow and spring runoff, they're virtually done irrigating for next year.
So what can we do to help?
Right now, money, donations are really not going to do a lot.
Reach out to politicians asking for help and help state and country officials understand that this is something where the brunt of funding cannot be put on the irrigators themselves.
The thing that's probably most important, that the public support this project in any way, shape, or form that they can.
While there are infrastructure issues that can be helped with money, a lot of the future of this area is going to depend on the weather we get throughout the remainder of this year and even into next year. So we will have to wait and see what the future holds. In Hill County, I'm Tommy Lynch, MTN News.
New growth is rising from the ashes. This little ponderosa pine is planted in front of this burned out ponderosa pine and is all part of a reforestation project between a Seattle-based company and a Cascade area rancher.
This is going to do really well as well.
Colorful seedlings represent a sharp contrast from the blackened trunks that serve as a reminder of the 2021 Harris Mountain fire.
And it was so hot that, you know, a lot of these areas, like what you see in the background, were completely burnt. Everything's burnt.
Don Harlan's family has owned the Sheep Creek Ranch, one of the last natural corridors between Yellowstone and Glacier, for the past 53 years. The wildlife that roam this high country supplement the ranch's primary outfitting business. After the fire, the ranch teamed up with a company called Mast Reforestation.
We're a vertically integrated reforestation company that reforests after catastrophic wildfires.
We've planted probably over 1 million or close to 1 million trees already, and we will plant probably another 500,000 to 750,000 next year.
Mast also sprayed weeds around the seedlings to keep competition for soil nutrients down. Lodgepole and ponderosa pines, along with Douglas firs, are replanted in the area where they burned.
This provides a little protection both from wind.
The fire did more than burn thousands of trees. It also disturbed the soil those trees depend on. Eroded soil is washed downstream, but restoration can actually revive the watershed.
Especially here at the headwaters of the Missouri River, this is really important. So as the forest recovers, what it does is reduces the impact of those raindrops on the soil. It also holds a cooler site so the snowpack stays longer, and that water filters down into the soil and refreshes the aquifer in a slower pace.
Logging the burned trees for lumber isn't practical, and Don's not a fan of burning the down piles because of the carbon that would be released. With the help of carbon credits, there's another option available.
They've come up with a new technology, is that they bury the logs for like 100 years and sequester that carbon in.
That is also an activity that wouldn't have happened if we didn't enter into this this space with the carbon market and are able to actually help pay for that by burying those logs.
It will be a long time before this area looks like it did before the fire, but taking steps now go a long way in restoring the land to what it once was.
He's leaving this land for his children and grandchildren. These are really important family legacy values that Mass wants to support with Don.
You can either cry about it or you can get in there and do your best to bring it back.
South of Cascade, Tim McGonigal, MTN News.
The Montana Fish and Wildlife Commission has set this hunting season's wolf harvest quota numbers and adjusted how the state manages wolves bordering Yellowstone National Park. Commissioners raised the statewide wolf hunting and trapping quota at its meeting Friday. Under the new rules, the hunting and trapping harvest would be capped at 334 wolves, an increase of 21 animals from the previous season. Last season, hunters and trappers harvested 286 wolves. The commission also reinstated the historic wolf management units of 313 and 316 that border Yellowstone National Park. The two units will have a quota of 3 wolves in each district, a total of 6.
For folks that are hunting or trapping in the Gardner Basin, they'll have to be mindful of the fact that there's an additional wolf management unit that they need to pay attention to in terms of regulations, quota, and closure. So that was one big unit before with a quota of 6. Now it's 2, each with a quota of 3. So depending on where you're hunting or trapping for wolves, you're going to need to make sure you know where you are, what the quota is, and then as always, report your harvest promptly as required by regulation.
During the public comment period, some agreed with and thanked the commission for their decision to accept the amendments.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooke, for the amendments you proposed, and thank all of you for passing them. It's nice to smile in this room.
Others felt the commission should increase numbers of wolves to be killed.
We support the hunting regs as proposed by the department, and the wolf quota is set or proposed by the department as well. As far as 313, we think more wolves could be taken out of 313.
The Gianforte administration came under fire during the 2021 through 2022 season due to the hunting of wolves bordering Yellowstone. That season saw 21 wolves harvested by hunters, and Yellowstone National Park reported one of their wolf packs was completely eliminated. Following that year, the commission set the quota for that area near Yellowstone to a total of 6 wolves. The 2023 statewide population estimate of 1,096 wolves across 181 packs is down slightly from the 10-year average, but remains well above recovery thresholds. The commission will meet again on October 10th to set wolf trapping dates. In Helena, Tom Buchanan, MTN News.
Summertime is water sports time. Whether it's driving a boat or paddling a craft, many people take to the water this time of year. Sadly, some of these people will be injured or even die simply because they didn't follow simple safety procedures.
Unfortunately, this year in Montana, there have been several human fatalities in connection with water recreation. Some of those are boating accidents. Some of them have taken place on rivers or with non-motorized watercraft. It's been kind of a mix. But one of the common problems that are involved with this are people just not wearing life jackets when they needed one.
Jacobson says the correlation between the type of craft you use to hit the water and injury or death is pretty clear.
About 75% of human fatalities happen on something like a canoe or a kayak or a paddleboard. Because there's a pretty good risk of you winding up in the water that way. That being said, the majority of injuries happen with motorized watercraft.
Jacobson also notes that most, if not all, fatalities and injuries on Montana's waterways are preventable by just following a couple safety tips.
A couple things that people can do to help protect themselves are wear a life jacket. You can take advantage of life jacket loaner equipment like this one. The other thing is not boating under the influence of alcohol. Alcohol and water recreation do not mix well when it comes to human safety.
Now, the rules in Montana are very simple. Every watercraft must have an approved life jacket for every person aboard. And if anybody aboard is 11 or younger, they must be wearing their life jacket at all times. And that goes for everything from a water ski boat down to your paddle boards. At Harrison Lake, Chet Lehman, MTN News.
Coming up after the break, we see how a Montana man is being honored for his commitment to wildland conservation. But first, it's time for some trivia. Salmon fishing is hot right now, but do you know how big the largest Chinook salmon ever caught in Montana was? That answer coming up after the break.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back. So, do you know how big the largest Chinook salmon caught in Montana is? Caught just a couple weeks ago at Fort Peck Lake by Jim Foth, the record salmon weighed 32.62 pounds and measured 38 inches long and 28 inches in girth, or about the size of an average blue heeler. A waterfowl refuge out near Molt now has a brand new name in honor of a Montana man dedicated to protecting Montana birds and their habitat. David J. has more.
We're on some Fish, Wildlife, and Parks land out past Molt. You can hear the pelicans on the islands there. Jim Hansen used to like to come out here, count the birds, assess the population, and even do some hunting. And now east of here, out past those lakes, there's the James L. Hansen Waterfowl Production Area.
When he found out about it about a week before he passed away, he said, just put a sign out there and say, Jim's watering hole.
So the Fish and Wildlife Service did just that. A big sign with his name on the 2,700 acres next to the Big Lake Waterfowl Management Area.
He would have been very humbled to see the sign and the people that were here on Friday.
Phyllis Hansen was married to Jim for 53 years until he died in October of 2022. On Friday, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service honored him for his more than 50 years working with waterfowl, 31 of those with Fish, Wildlife, and Parks. Phyllis says Jim always wanted to educate people about the birds.
He wanted them to appreciate their beauty.
His love of wildlife and especially birds really resonates, I think, with rural America. Jim is going to be their kind of guy.
Cortez Rohr is the district manager for the Charles M. Russell Wetland Management District and says Jim Hansen was instrumental in the Fish and Wildlife Service acquiring the land.
He's just an avid conservationist. He had many friends far and wide. People, I think, kind of gravitated to him. They enjoyed him. They enjoyed his stories.
Phyllis told a story about Jim's straight shooting involving what he said to golf course management that wanted a pair of geese.
Next year, when you have multiple pairs of geese and you have the problem of geese eating and the results, I'm not going to get them off of your land for you.
Rohr and his co-workers understand why Jim Hansen had a passion for waterfowl that lasted more than 5 decades.
Most folks in our line of business, we love the land and we love the intrinsic value that you get not only from harvesting wild game, but seeing the other species. It's just a way to connect.
In Stillwater County, David J., MTN News.
It's about 660 feet long total between the tea gardens that are up at the top by the lodge and then goes all the way down to the depot.
1,800 new plants and a variety of 85 plant species are back on full display at the gardens of Glacier Park Lodge.
We planted certain things throughout the garden so blooms happen from the time the snow stops in May until the snow starts in October. So there's blooms throughout the whole summer.
During the COVID shutdown in 2020, workers were not allowed on site to take care of the gardens as invasive plant species and rapid overgrowth took ruin. Glacier Park Lodge Special Projects Manager Cody Kirkland and his team of gardeners came up with a master plan to restore the gardens.
The plants kind of exploded and choked out some of the other stuff, so we had to pretty much not start fresh. We tried to keep as many of the plants that were historical in the garden as we could, but we took out all the grass, rototilled everything, put the irrigation system in. We put fertilizer in to help, bring up the soil quality.
During the winter months, Kirkland nurtured plants in the lodge's greenhouse as they prepared to plant come spring.
Started stuff early as well because some of it you have to start in order to plant right in the spring. So I started some of the plants in December, got seedlings, and started trying to plant stuff as soon as we could, as soon as the frost stopped hitting.
These enormous gardens reach the length of a football field, welcoming visitors from around the world.
all the beautiful plants. The people like to come walk through it, and we have a lot of elderly people that come that can't do all the hikes and stuff, so to bring some of the beauty into the front lawn and allow access to that is important.
Master gardener Ann Amy says it's a labor of love to bring these gardens back to life.
Some of the plants we just keep deadheading them, and they put blooms back on within a week. So, and now that we've finally had some rain, it'll really help them to bloom.
Kirkland's excited to see the gardens blossom for years to come.
It's going to take a few years for it to fill out, and the plants will grow and get bigger and expand. But I'm really proud of the team, and they did a great job getting it to the point that it's at.
In East Glacier, Sean Wells, MTN News.
There's no shortage of hidden gems when it comes to exploring the Northwest, and among them is Porcupine Falls, here just south of the Montana-Wyoming state line, which has things to do for people of all skills and ages. Hidden in the Bighorn Mountains.
If you drove by it on the mountain on the road, you'd never know it was there.
Sits a trail few have ever heard of.
I'm like, how did we ever miss this place?
The hidden gem leads to Porcupine Falls and feels truly like the middle of nowhere.
It's crazy that it's right in our back door and we never even came here.
The 0.7-mile hike itself isn't challenging.
You got little kids and you got elderly people walking.
Even my new pal Obi approves. But it certainly is rewarding.
When it opens up down there, it's absolutely beautiful.
After hearing the sounds of the falls get closer and closer, eventually you arrive at this oasis.
It's like you're walking into a paradise.
We try to come here at least once or twice a year for the last 10 years probably.
Sheridan resident Jeremy Stewart and his family are frequent visitors. He says a lot of work has been done to the trail, like these man-made steps, hoping to make the trek a little easier.
It's phenomenal, all the people that get to see it. Like I said 10 years ago, everybody's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
And while the place is getting more attention, few are as courageous as the Stewarts to test the water.
It's usually hot coming down, so it feels great to jump in the cold water.
How cold was it?
It was chilly. I mean, I'll do it again before I leave, but it was chilly.
At Porcupine Falls, Charlie Kleps, MTN News.
Coming up after the break, we learn more about cleanup efforts at a Montana Superfund site.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
The Upper 10 Mile Creek area is a historic mining district right outside of Helena, but it was declared a Superfund site because of ongoing contamination. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian went and visited the site to see what kind of remediation is taking place.
I'm in the Minihaha Creek drainage in the mountains west of Helena, and around 100 years ago in this area, the Pocahontas mine produced lead and zinc, and the waste products from that mine were left here on the hillside. Now, after all of that time, this contaminated dirt is being cleaned up.
When, the agencies, and the public and the contractors work together, we really can accomplish a lot.
The EPA secured funding for this phase of the work, and Montana DEQ is supervising the project. The leftover material from these mines still contains significant amounts of metal, and when water filters through, it can generate acidic drainage and leach metals into nearby creeks. The Minihaha drainage includes around 40 former mine sites, and leaders identified 5 that contributed the most to metal loading downstream. That's where they're focusing their work.
It will certainly have a major impact on reducing the amount of zinc in both Minihaha Creek and in Upper 10 Mile.
One long-term goal is that reducing zinc loading will improve condition for aquatic life. Contractors are using excavators to dig out the contaminated material. They're loading it onto trucks, and those trucks are carrying it about 12 miles to a secure, lined repository near the top of the divide.
There's an awful big mountain here and an awful lot of logistics as far as different haul routes and the amount of miles it takes to get this product to the repository.
Crews are also hauling material from near Highway 12 to the repository. Minihaha Road is closed on weekdays through the end of the summer, so trucks can use it.
It's real uncomfortable for us to tell somebody they can't go up there. But the things that can happen if they do, you see the size of the trucks. They don't stop on a dime.
At the Pocahontas mine, there's about 4,000 tons of material to move. Crews will then bring in clean dirt and eventually recontour and revegetate.
There won't be a waste pile anymore.
Leaders hope to have all of this work in the Minihaha drainage completed by the end of this year. In Lewis and Clark County, Jonathan Amberian, MTN News.
Roughly 300 motorcyclists are riding from Helena to Yellowstone to honor the 53 POWs and MIAs from across Montana.
I think it's important that we realize that the freedoms we have in this country are the result of people who sacrificed their lives and their families that were affected by it as well. We've got 53 missing from Montana. Their families have no closure at this point, and it's part of our mission to see if we can't make sure those 53 end up coming back home.
Every biker pays a $20 registration fee, with the funds going to spread awareness for the service members who are either a prisoner of war or missing in action. The ride is 183 miles long on Highway 287, which is the POW MIA Memorial Highway.
It rejuvenates your heart and the faith of this country when you're going down the road and people pull over on the side of the road and salute the flag when you go by, or little kids are in the back of a flatbed pickup waving an American flag in the middle of a county road someplace. It's pretty cool.
The ride is a little different for the association this year. One of its longtime members is not riding with them.
We lost one of our members this year in a motorcycle accident in July, so we're trying to honor Will Fido Frank in this ride.
Frank served for 32 years and was a command sergeant major retired Montana Army National Guard. He also was the founder and president of the Lost Soldiers Organization, which is a group of veterans who ride motorcycles together.
Will always be a part of this ride.
The Madison County Sheriff's Office rides with the group the entire way to make sure everyone gets there safely. They make 2 stops in Three Forks and Ennis and expect to pick up another 40 to 50 riders from those locations.
It's one big family today, especially. Everybody's here for the same cause and the same reason, and it's really gratifying to be a part of something like this. It makes you remember what America's all about.
In Helena, I'm Allie Kaiser, MTN News.
Well, thanks so much for joining me on this week's journey across the state. We hope you enjoyed yourself, and we'll see you right back here next week for another episode of MTN Outdoors. Until then, get out there, have fun, and stay safe. Bye for now.